And welcome to the Under the Bus podcast. I'm your host, Merge, and I'm here with Clayton. Clayton, is your Twitter a burner account for any big name NBA people? I just gotta ask.
You'll have to ask my mom about that.
Okay. And also here we have special guest at Laker Film or Pete Zayas. How are you doing, Pete?
Doing well, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How have you been handling all this Sixers stuff going on right now?
Oh, it's fantastic, man. It's like everything. All of the best parts of NBA Twitter and NBA Reddit. Like, I couldn't think of a more tailor-made story.
Oh yeah,
in a season of like really tailor-made stories for NBA Twitter. It's been a really great year league-wide on that. Like, I saw someone tweet that that NBA Twitter and Reddit should handle the Russian investigation because it would be over within a couple weeks. Like just seeing how people delve into it. And like I saw someone like timestamp like, oh well, he had a media availability at the exact same time this was tweeted, therefore he couldn't be the one. It's great, man. It's just beautiful.
Or the Dwayne Wade thing in China with the kid, and Brian wasn't there, but we know Jerry was because he was the head of USA Basketball at the time. So, oh man, it's so great.
It's been quite a ride. This might be the weirdest story of the season, and like you said, in a season full of just insane stories. Where we've had Kawhi Leonard sit out a year, pretty much. We've had Markelle Fultz have a fake injury. We've had we've had so much stuff happen. We had J.R. Smith throw soup at a coach, and that's probably not even
favorites. My two favorites have been this, just for absurdity's sake, have been this, and then Chris Paul through the secret tunnels of Staples Center to beat up Austin Rivers. Just, I love basketball.
Man.
If no one has seen the Bleacher Report Game of Zones episode of that, it's absolutely incredible. It gives it so much justice. But anyway, moving on from that craziness, the finals are tomorrow, part 4 of Warriors and Cavs, and I would say it's been a more exciting playoffs than last couple years have, especially with all the the Rockets threatening to beat the Warriors and LeBron beating the East by himself and everything like that. So just from a general Lakers standpoint, people start with you. What is the playoffs taught you for the Lakers, how they should build in the future, anything specifically like that?
Teams are switching so much these days, man, and that's becoming more and more apparent in the playoffs. Just watching, how, for example, the way that Boston ended up losing to Cleveland, one thing that Cleveland did in the second half of Game 7 was they would switch the initial pick and roll, and then Boston would try and beat it by giving the ball to Al Horford against George Hill or whomever the guard was that switched. Mm-hmm. But before that entry pass was made, then George Hill and Jeff Green would switch on the weak side. So then Hill would end up on like Morris, and then you'd have Jeff Green on Al Horford, which is still a mismatch, but not nearly as bad.
Yeah.
And so just like the different chess matches of how to switch and things like that. And as it relates to the Lakers, like Lakers are really well built for that defensively. I think that offensively, maybe they may be a little more challenged in that you need guys to be able to score well in one-on-one situations against ISO matchups where the Lakers may not be as developed on that end. But on the defensive end, I think the Lakers are right on the right track.
Yeah, I agree. I think defensively, especially if they do keep Julius. Julius is a guy that I think is tailor-made for situations like that in the playoffs. A guy that you can just have switch on really anyone. That's what it seemed like this year with him. And having that guy just be able to guard the Steph Currys and guys like that, matches like that is really important. And then not only Julius, someone like Josh Hart, someone like Lonzo, someone like Ingram, who seem to be able to switch really well. It's really important for that. Same question for you, Clayton.
I pretty much agree with everything Pete just said. I've always, well, not always, I guess the last few years, I've really been saying like the most important thing in basketball is wings. And just there's no like real dominant big men that are, I mean, like you have AD, of course, but just the teams that are going furthest just have like the best wing talent, and nothing that I've seen has really discouraged me from that. I mean, obviously Al Horford was very valuable, but then apparently he was just completely neutralized by
Tristan Thompson killed him. If you see the splits with
Thompson on the court, he was like a negative 40 something whenever Tristan Thompson was on the floor with him. So like my focus is always on wings, and with the later getting into like draft talk, that's just kind of still been my focus is wings with size and skills. So
yeah, I agree. I think as it pertains to bigs, I think the type of bigs that are important to have are, again, like a guy like Julius that can switch, or a guy like Clint Capella, who seemed to be really successful
definitely
at times, especially in Game 7 against the Warriors. He had that run where he was like absolutely insane, rim running, dunking on everyone. He was able to switch pretty
as well as he could
against like Steph and KD. Even though like the Warriors obviously won, those are the type of bigs that teams need, I think, and not guys like high usage guys who need the ball at all times. I know Clayton, you're a big Boogie's a guy like that. I know Clayton, you're a guy that's more bigs don't really win you a lot of don't win you championships.
Not with how basketball's played at the moment. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Pete could probably shut my argument up really quick. But
I tend to agree with you on that. I do think, I mean, bigs still have a place. I don't think you.
I totally agree with that.
But even you brought up a guy like Al Horford. He played well by and large during the playoffs. Tristan Thompson aside, of course, but even he's a guy, he's like a really good ball handler for his size. He can pass, like these are all like, there's nothing wrong with being big. In fact, being big is great. Kevin Durant is big, at least in a height and wingspan type of sense. It's just a matter of like, does that big have skills? Like that's what it's really about is do you have skills? And if you're big and have skills, that's better than if you're small and you have the same skills, right?
Yeah.
But it's just harder to find guys that are able to do those things while still being 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely agree with that. So Clayton, you brought up the draft a little bit there. It's full on draft season, at least for people who aren't the Warriors or the Cavs. But the Lakers have been working out a bunch of guys. Tomorrow they have a workout with the more notable people there are Josh Okogie and Devontae Graham, Landry Shamet. Those are the main guys there. But there's been a lot of guys that I think the Lakers can really use. It's a really deep class for that pick. Well, first of all, Pete, this is your first year doing draft workout stuff, right?
Oh man, it's like Laker fan dream come true to be there. Be like, oh yeah, this guy, right? Acting, like these guys as well as other people do, which I don't. I focus on the Lakers most of the season, and then I play catch up these last couple months.
Right.
But yeah, it's awesome to be able to go in, and by the time we get there, they're getting shots up, and then they do the Lakers mentality drill at the end, which is like how well do you shoot in 90 seconds while you're tired, So, but just being in the building, hearing rumors and just talking to other people and things like that, it's like I said, Laker fan dream come true.
Right. So one of the guys that me and Clayton love, and I know you said it on Twitter before, Pete, that you love this guy too, is Kevin Huerter from Maryland. And I know you were there. You were there for his day last Friday, right? That's when he did his pre-draft workout for the Lakers. What did you get from him during the interview stage, and what do you see from him as a player?
From the interview stage, one thing he really emphasized is that he's not just a shooter. I think he's a guy. It's easy to look at him and just be like, oh yeah, this guy's a 3 and hopefully D type of player.
Yeah.
But he can handle the ball, and that was one thing he was adamant about. He's like, I've got a good feel for the game. I can make plays for other guys. I think he wants to be seen as an all-around player, not just a sniper type of guy. That said, again, this is the only parts of the workout that we get to see. He shoots a really easy ball. That's what I tweeted out when watching him. Like, it's a very effortless, 25-footer to 28-footer that he's able to put up. I said the Lakers mentality drill, I mentioned that he put up the highest score of anybody that I've seen, putting up 23 in that. And but he's just a fluid guy. He was working out with Grayson Allen, and seeing them next to each other, like Huerter is way bigger than Allen. And I know that we know that in terms of like their listed heights, but it's more than like the 6'5" versus 6'7" difference. He's just a much bigger person than Allen is. And I think for all that he brings to the table in terms of ball handling and shooting, even in context with what we were talking about before, that ability to switch, things like that, those things are starting to matter. If you can get a legit 6'7" guy that can do the things that he does, I think that's if you get a chance at him, you got to take it.
Right. Yeah, he's a guy that me and Clayton have absolutely just fawned over the past 2-3 weeks. I know Clayton, you've made like the biggest jump ever. Like,
man, yeah, like when I saw like the Stepien had him at like 20, I was just like, what are they thinking? Like, this is ridiculous. And then I started watching tape and I was like, holy crap, I love this kid. Yeah, Pete, as you said, like he's more than just that sniper. And like it's not just that he's toe on the line either. He was in college shooting deep. So Lakers have had what, 3 years in the last like 10 of average or above 3-point shooting as a team. So like getting a guy like him would just be incredible. And then as you said, he brings that ball handling, a little bit of creativity and playmaking. I believe he was a point guard in high school, and that's usually that's something that you kind of look more for at like the quote unquote bigs, you know, the 4s and the 5s, but just the fact that he has those skills is just incredibly important to me, just because sometimes the offense, in my opinion, just lacked a lot of creativity. So bringing that in, and plus even though he's not going to be a lockdown defender by himself, I think he's a really solid team defender. He's not going to get really burned. He's decently athletic, maybe a little bit more. He's not the quote unquote, you know, son of a coach, or he's gritty, or, you know, all the white guy monikers, you know. He does have some legit athleticism to him, and just the size, you know, how you said he's a true 6'7". And I think, what did he measure at Merge? I think he had like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. It wasn't a huge plus, but
this is uncharted territory for you, Clayton. Guy with an average.
I know. Usually I need like that +4, +5, but just all the skills he brings, and just the shot, man. I don't know. I've fallen in love with the shot. He's the best shooter by far, in my opinion, in this entire draft class. And
yeah, what I heard was that the Lakers really liked him. Like I said, I got a couple buddies on that work for the team, and I was, pointing him out. I was like, that's the dude to watch for. Like, I really like that guy right there. And one of those people was like, yeah, you're not the only one. But
oh man,
but they're not confident that he's going to be there 25.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's something that in our gigantic Twitter thread that we have with like 8 different people, we've been talking about that, and I agree. I don't know if he will be there, but with more and more mock drafts saying that he's going to be in that range, I would at least consider trading out for him. I mean, I've got him like right at the end of my lottery, so I'd be willing to trade up for him.
The problem is that they may need some of those assets with what they want to do in free agency.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. With like possibly moving Dang and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah, that's the stuff that sucks with him. He's gotten like the most helium out of anyone in this draft from like
at least
like
the draft
month ago now. Oh yeah, for sure. The draft Knicks have like absolutely probably overboard at this point on him.
Yeah, and see, that's kind of like my issue with, is he going to be there at 25? Obviously, he may not be, but with how Draft Knicks, on Twitter, we all love to pump these guys up. People on the Stepien, they're awesome at what they do. I think they have Jonte at
RIP.
Yeah, RIP. They had Jonte at 27 or at 12. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he just went back because there was some mocks where he wasn't even in the first round.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm more hopeful. maybe it's just for once being optimistic about it, but yeah, no, I totally could see him gone.
Yeah. Pete, as someone who looks at like all the film during the whole last couple of seasons for the Lakers, adding a shooter like a Herter, how important would that be for this offense?
I mean, take what Kuzma brought to the table, right?
Yeah.
As an offensive threat and a guy who can, and that's the important word, is like, can you be a threat? Can you be somebody that, like, as a defense, I have to worry about helping off of you? And the Lakers have had so many guys over the last few years where they have that negative gravity, right? Where teams will cheat off of them if they're in certain spots on the floor. And I was, for the Ingram series that I've been doing, I went back 2 years and watched the Mozgov Randall year, right? And like I'm watching this, I'm like, how did anybody ever think that putting two bigs together in this day and age who can't shoot threes was ever a good idea, right? And just like seeing the domino effect that it had on everybody else. So having a guy like Herter that can do that while still being capable in other areas, like that's one thing that stood out to me about the Cavs is they have a lot of guys who do like one thing. I mean, and they're still playing. They made it to the finals, but they wouldn't be here if they played in the West.
Right.
I think that like having those types of guys where they're just a shooter, I think those guys are going to start getting phased out if you can't bring other things to the table. And to that note, if I can give Herter a little bit more helium and reason for you guys to love him, his synergy numbers on the defensive end, offensive end are off the charts. He's on both ends. He's probably the best statistical profile that you're going to find from anyone anywhere close to that part of the draft. But in his isolation defense, he allowed 0.54 points per possession, which was in the 85th percentile in the NCAA. As a pick and roll ball handler defender, 0.55, which was in the 88th percentile. So a lot to really like about him. And even from watching him on tape, I think that Maryland did a few things, especially offensively, that were, like, why is Bruno Fernando posting up so much and things like that, that I think probably suppressed Herter's value, that NBA teams are starting to be like, oh yeah, this guy could really play.
Especially in a conference like the ACC, it's one of the tougher ones in college basketball, and with a lot of guard play there and a lot of like wing play, like having those good synergy numbers is pretty impressive.
I think, isn't Maryland in the Big Ten now?
Oh wait, yeah, you're right. But still, I mean,
but yeah, I suppose it's same thing.
Yeah, same thing. It's still like college basketball is very wing heavy a lot of the time. Then for him to have big numbers or big synergy numbers in a Power 5 conference is like pretty impressive. Moving on from Herter, as much as we like to gush on over him the whole podcast. Pete, is there any other guys in that range that have stuck out to you, whether it be in the workouts or just guys you've watched film on?
He's been the guy that stood out the most that I've seen in person. I really liked what I saw of Javon Carter. Although he may not be a 25 option, I also don't think he necessarily slips to 47. I think he's the type of guy that I don't think he can run an NBA offense, but if you've got like wings who can handle the ball and you need a guy to 3-and-D and just compete like hell, like I think he's an option perhaps at 47, if he's there, of course. And then, in terms of watching tape, I've been digging into Mitchell Robinson a little bit just because that whole situation's interesting. He's interesting on tape. I've gotten a chance to watch a couple of full games of his, which are a little difficult to find, but I got my hands on him, and he needs to get in shape. He's a guy that gets winded really, really easily, and that can be problematic. But boy, oh boy, that kid has quite the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the guy that's been like absolutely the mystery guy in this draft. Like no one has any idea what he can be. I've heard like people have said DeAndre Jordan with a jumper, or he can just be the next like just guy who's athletic who can't do anything else, like
Tyrese Thomas.
Tyrese Thomas.
Yeah, he could be. His work ethic's going to matter a lot because like he's one of those high school guys that's so much more talented than everybody else that he does everything wrong and still gets away with it. Like he doesn't set good screens, even though he could be one of the few guys that could like pick and pop or pick and roll and be a threat at both of them. Like he doesn't have any experience running legitimate high level basketball actions. He gets tired easily. He can be disengaged. So like to me, I'd be trying to find everything I could out about him as a person, because I think that's going to matter with him even more than it does with most guys.
Yeah, I think honestly, like, and that's going to be, as you said, like the biggest question, because with the weird Western Kentucky, I'm going to go, I'm not going to go, I'm going to go, I'm actually just going to take the year off. And now instead of being with a pro skills coach, and he's actually apparently working out with his uncle, I think that's just a lot of like red flags, Yeah,
I do too, and that's why this is the information gap that, as draftniks, and I wouldn't even put myself in that. You guys are way more hardcore on this than I am. But like that's the information gap that we all operate with, is that you know, maybe there's an explanation for all of it. But like you said, from our perspective, those type of things don't look good. And, you know, there's been a rumor of guarantee for him and a promise and things like that. It's like, you better really know the person that you're drafting before you do something like that, with the caveat that I really trust this Lakers front office in the draft. So
yeah, he's coming into the year, he was one of my absolute favorite guys. I had him at one point at like top 10 just because of, you know, the physical measurements of him. You know, he's like 7'7" with like a 7'4", 7'5" wingspan. He's athletic. The video where it says he's got wing handles and stuff like that, that's in the little video for that, he loses a ball like twice with no one on him. So let's calm that down a little bit. The shot, I'm not a shot doctor, but it's not great in my opinion. I mean, it's not the worst I've seen, but yeah, I think if you can get him to be like a DeAndre type, and that's like one of my favorite types of bigs right there. But just because he's such an enigma, there's no way I can see him lasting or you know, going as high as I originally would have had him, you know?
Yeah. Moving on, there's a few guys I want to see if Pete if you watch any on. The guy that I like the most, even over Herder, is D'Anthony Melton from SC. I know he didn't have any tape this year. Have you been able to look back on him, or have you been able to see what other people think on him?
Yeah, he's a guy that I've dived into for sure. You know, I don't think I have anything new to say on him necessarily. Right. I think he might be the best defensive guard prospect in the draft. I have concerns on the offensive end. Like maybe you can Merge, maybe you can talk me into something. What is he going to do well offensively in the NBA?
Yeah, that's a thing that it sucks that we didn't get to see him at all last year, because from like stuff that I've heard is that his shot looks a lot better, and he's able to sort of attack the rim a little bit. He has good vision for a guy like that. He had, I think, 3.5 assists last year for a guy that didn't handle the ball as much. But he's a guy that I know he's working with Drew Hanlon, and he's a guy that is a good one to fix the shot. I think I trust his defense so much that if we get any sort of offense, if he gets a jumper down like 36 plus, maybe even a little more, then he's like the perfect guy to have next to Alonzo. Because if you saw him in the combine, and yeah, it's the combine, but he was getting after dudes. Like he was really working on that end.
He's a phenomenal defender, and like that's a great place to start, right? I guess for me, yes, he's got some passing ability, but I couldn't see him as a primary shot creator because he's not much of a threat on the ball himself, right? Like I think his playmaking ability will be in transition and then off of attacking closeouts, drive kick type stuff, where maybe he wasn't the guy that broke down the defense, but he's the guy who's benefiting from the guy who broke down the defense. And now the defense rotated over. Now he kicks out to Ingram on the weak side for a three or something like that. I think that's more his type of playmaking. But and even at the combine, I think he went like 1 for 2 from 3. Yeah. Like he was pretty gun shy with his jumper in my opinion. And so he's a guy, like I like Melton. I don't want to sound like I don't like him. I'm just concerned is like you could add the caveat of like if he adds a jumper, yada yada yada, for so many guys that like what if Melvin Frazier has a great jumper?
Oh, that's like, that's a game changer, man. That's
right there. You know what I mean? So like to me, it can't just be a but type of thing. Like to me, that's
I think with him, well, he was a guy that I really liked last year, and I've liked a lot. DX kind of hyped him up a little bit, and he was a guy that just did a lot for SC. Had like he did a little bit of everything in terms of his scoring, passing, rebounding, the steals, blocks, stuff like that. And I sort of have an attachment to him. I think that's why I like him more than a lot of guys do on at least Lakers Twitter. I know Cole Zwicker is super high on him. He has him, I think, 13th or 12th in his lottery. But I think I'm so fixated on the defense with him that if you do get the jumper, it would just be great for him, and he'd be like a guy that's a really good role player for a long time. But I mean, he's not like far and away better than Herder for me. He's like, it's just a preference thing for me.
He's the thing with Melton, in my opinion, is like if he doesn't develop the shot, I mean, like, is his defense, because I don't know if he's as strong as this guy, is his like top outcome Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart has value, of course. We've seen that. But my thing is as Pete said, like, what is he bringing offensively? And he could do a little this, a little that, but I don't trust the shot. I know it looks good I've seen, several of those little highlights in the open gym, but until you actually do that in a game, that's why I'm not usually super high on workouts. There's only been like a handful I've been like, holy crap, that's awesome. But
shout out to the Porzingis workout, man. That one was right.
Yeah, or like, yeah. But I don't want to.
Oh, sorry. Pete. I don't want to. Pete doesn't like Porzingis.
No, it's just I just think he's overrated.
No, I got you, man.
I 100% agree with you, Pete. But yeah, I mean, just so if he turns into Marcus Smart, yeah, he's able to take the pressure on defense off of Zoe, but then you have and I do think Lonzo, his shot will eventually come back. But say Lonzo's more of just a 36% shooter instead of, like the 40% guy that I think most of us all hope that he would be coming out of UCLA. So then you have a guy that's maybe 36 in Zoe and then like 31 in Melton. And like, yeah, you have a great defensive backcourt, but then that leaves all the pressure to score on Ingram or, whoever you get in free agency, Randall, if he's still here, or Kuzma. So like Hart, while I think Kuzma is a good offensive threat, I still think he's only a second or third best option. Maybe Pete would have more opinion on that, but and then kind of same with, even though I'm still incredibly high on Ingram, maybe he only tops out at as a second option. So then you have those two, and then guys that just kind of have to distribute to them and, hope that maybe they get garbage points. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
You need multiple dudes that can
exactly
on the bucket. I mean, not to be too reductive, but like Golden State has maybe the 3 best shooters of all time.
Yeah.
And they still almost lost in the conference finals. Right. and so like you need, where Kuzma falls on the pecking order, to me, like second, third option type of stuff, it matters, but not as much as like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant are both first options.
Yeah.
The second option on it. It doesn't matter. Like they're really good at scoring the basketball and shooting the basketball. And yeah, when you've got too many guys on the team that are like that, that can be problematic. That being said, at 25, you got to get an NBA player.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
he doesn't necessarily fit as a shooter within the NBA within the rest of your core, but he's an NBA player. Like you've got less than a 50-50 shot at getting a rotation guy at that point. And so even if you can't shoot, you got to take him.
Yeah.
Sure. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, he's more of a guy that it's more of a preference thing for me, but Herder he's neck and neck with him. You brought Melvin Frazier. Let's have him as the last guy we talk about for the draft guys. What have you seen from Melvin Frazier? Because he's an athletic freak.
Yeah, he's probably my like irrational hoping for see the best in him, like kind of your DeAnthony Melton type guy.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
So like you said, his athleticism is just bonkers, and he combines that with like a 7'2", 7'3" wingspan somewhere in there. And he's got a great motor, which isn't always true of those like really, high-end athlete guys. I love his feet on the defensive end. I think he's going to be a really high-end defender. And then the thing that makes me the most hopeful about him is I just saw flashes of ball handling in the tape of him that I've seen that I'm like, there's something there. And he may not be able to access it as much against college spacing, but I
especially with Tulane,
You're right, yeah. But I think like when you've got a guy that is that type of athlete that can also handle the ball, for me, those are two really big like boxes that get checked. Like when I look at those freak athlete guys, like, can you handle the ball and then can you shoot? The jumper with him is a little more touch and go, right? And that'll be something that'll determine his ceiling. But to me, if you got an athlete like that can handle the rock a bit, like, I'm curious, Clayton, what, like, I know you like those rangy wing types. Does Frazier scratch that itch for you?
He not at 25, and the reason why is just because I think the shot was not real this year. Before it was at like 29.4% or something like that. It's really scary. The shot isn't great, but if we're going to go like, you know, how we were talking about just getting that NBA player, the comp that I've thrown around, and I'm not generally a fan of comps, is like Anthony Roberson with more ball skills, and getting that at 25, I think has a lot of value still. Or like, say they buy a pick at like early second round, or, you know, something like that, trade up 47 and like zoo and move up as well. Like that, I would absolutely love doing for him. It's just, for him, it just comes down to the shot. Cause yeah, I think he can handle a bit. I don't know if it's as good as he showed at Tulane, because it was at Tulane. But yeah, the measurables, when I saw him at the combine, I think it was like a 7'3" or almost 7'4" wingspan. I was just like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll happily take that.
Yeah, that's and I'm surprised. This has been a really weird year for Clayton, and me too, when it comes to the guys that we like a guy like Melvin Frazier would be a guy that normally is like, yeah, Clayton normally like, yeah, well, give me him now.
I do like him. It's just, I you know, he's what, he went 3 or 4 years at Tulane, and just you don't know if the shot is there. Like with Ingram, he shot well at Duke, and you could see it translating, and it's still obviously a work in progress, but I have no idea like what is going to happen with Frazier. And as I kind of said, like on our Twitter, I've gone through like this weird thing with prospects. Usually I'm just always athleticism and measurements, and then you can teach skills. But this now, with seeing just where basketball is going, obviously you have to have skills, and you have to have these areas that you're going to have to rely on more than just, yeah, he's freakishly long and he can jump really high. So I'm kind of like in my own like weird place, I guess. But
yeah, and then loving a guy like Herder, who's 6'7" with a 6'7".
I know. Like, I did not like Luke Kennard last year. I thought that was a terrible pick. And it turned out, because they were a pick before
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, the skills are there, and I'm so desperate for shooters, and
that too.
And I think, as I said, I think he's the best shooter in the draft. And I can't remember who brought it up. I don't know if it was Jerry, that there's only like one elite or not quite generational type shooter, but you know, those guys that are shooting 42, 43, 44+% from three. And I think that's Horder right there. I've talked with Mike, the at Canyon Driver. I think it was him, or maybe it was Deep Hearts, about how in like 3 years I could see Horder being like top 10 in 3-point percentage. I'm just that high on the shot. It's not one of those shots that it's just pretty, but it doesn't really go in like a Anthony Brown.
Oh man,
shout out to Anthony
interesting
Brown.
About his digging into the synergy numbers a bit about his jumper, and this is a bit of an argument against it. Now, most guys shoot worse when they're guarded versus when they're unguarded, obviously, but it's more severe with him. So when he's unguarded, he's 1.39 points per possession, which puts him in the 81st percentile amongst unguarded jumpers, right? He's
very nice.
Lights out. When he's guarded, it's 0.94, which puts him in the 46th percentile in the NCAA. So that's it. And when you watch his shot, and I'm curious, we could talk about this on Twitter, you know, going forward after you watch it again. But to me, he has a little bit of a low set point and a little bit of an outward release I haven't seen enough tape on him to be like, oh yeah, this is the issue when he's contested. But I do think that for me, like synergy numbers provide clues, and then the tape can kind of confirm or have it be like, oh, well, yeah, it's like this because of this other reason, right? But to me, that's something to look out for him in terms of like that jumper is smooth for sure, but is he going to be able to get that up as cleanly against NBA quality closeouts?
Yeah, and I think his shot does start a little low, so that pocket's a little low, but I also just Maryland lost Melo Trimble, so he kind of had to put in a little bit more on there, and then Justin Jackson went down, so there goes another guy that was supposed to take on a heavy load. So I think it was partly just, you know, maybe it's just me and my irrationality of love for him of just trying to explain things away, but I do think the context is there of just, you know, those guys that were previously there, you know, that Justin Jackson was a guy that several people were talking about top 20 pick before the year. And then I think he messed up his shoulder. It was, and then just, he played like 10 games. So he started really poorly and then got hurt. And
he's also only a 4 too. I think that was another reason.
Yeah. He's only a 4. And then like the only other real draft prospect other than I guess Jackson would be Bruno Fernando. And he's a typical big man. So, you know, roll to the rim. He's long. He's athletic type of thing, but he's not a guy that's going to stretch the floor. And honestly, I can't even remember who else was on Maryland, because without those three, you know, it was everyone else just kind of got lost in the shuffle and he became more of a focus. So, you know, maybe that's just some of the context there that I think is missing from the synergy numbers. And as Pete said, I totally agree with that. You go with the synergy, you look at them, and then they provide like a clue, and then you go look at the tape and see how it really is.
Yes, that's definitely a good point though. With the, you know, maybe we could be going a little bit too high. Draft time is a time where you just look at the tape and you're like, oh yeah, that this guy's totally going to be the best shooter in the league like next season or something like that. Like it might be a little irrational, but I think the doubt could be there if you look at the numbers like that. Okay, so moving on to Lakers free agency. I just want to gauge your confidence, Pete, on these guys. Let's start with the big guy. The big guy with the Lakers is Paul George. How confident are you that Paul George will be a Laker?
Oh, that's not the biggest guy.
Well, I think more with I agree, but I think with Laker fans, he's been the most talked
especially
about.
With Kobe stands and everything.
Yes.
I feel good about this summer. I'm worried that, you know, in 2 months I'm going to look like a fool for being as optimistic as I am and have felt about it. But I've felt like the Lakers free agent pursuits have been kind of dumb the last 5 years or so. Like trying to pursue guys that were just out of their league relative to like where the team was actually at or going, you know? Yeah. And I always felt like they were kind of foolish pursuits, and the Lakers did not have a good chance at guys they were said to have a good chance at. This is the first year in those last 5 years where I'm optimistic, and I do think they're going to get Paul George. I think they're going to get LeBron too. Not to put not to bury the lead there, but like
no, go ahead.
No, I think that both guys are coming. I mentioned this to Anthony the other day about how. And again, I want to contextualize this. None of the individual sources are good, but I've had 4 different sources in the entertainment industry. None of them have been basketball people that have said that, like, no, LeBron's coming. He's had to put X, Y, and Z in motion from a marketing standpoint. He's not just a basketball player, right? He's a guy that's an industry in a lot of ways. And he's had to tell his people, like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Now, everybody loves to have the juicy bit of gossip and info and things like that. So when people tell me that, it's like, yeah. But the similarities in the 4 different people that told me, 2 of which actually aren't Laker fans and don't want him to come to the Lakers, it was like, that's interesting. So, you know, if I had to, like, I feel very confident about Paul George. Yes. I feel like if you put a gun to my head, LeBron is coming versus not. If I had to make a decision between the 2.
That's really interesting. I think I haven't really felt like I've never felt like LeBron was coming, but I mean, it always seems like it's been there in the background, but I've never really acknowledged it as much. it's gonna be if he does, it's gonna be extremely interesting to see what the rest of the team looks like, because there's a part of me that thinks, oh, like, we'll just keep the rest of the young guys and maybe let Randall walk if that happened. But then there's another part of me that feels like, wait, are they gonna like try to go all in and try to get that Chris Bosh type, you know?
That's what I was gonna just say, because I remember the last time we had Pete on and we were talking about this.
It's been a damn show trade.
Yeah, it was more about would they be contenders, and you know, the fact that LeBron just took that terrible team all the way to the finals. Yes, it was in the East, but like add Paul George to that. I do, and all the young guys. Pete, do you think that if both of them come, do you think you try and trade guys for that third star, or do you just try and let them build? There's like there's weird things going on with like LeBron and everyone, how they talk about him. You know, all the Lakers fans are like, they're just going to trade all the young guys and they're going to go after a third star and start trying to contend right away. And then there's like LeBron fans who say, you know, who has he really traded? Andrew Wiggins and
Anthony Bennett.
So like, do you think like they would immediately try and dangle like Kuzma and Brandon Ingram for like Kawhi, or
like, do you think, let's say a third star is like Bradley Beal. Let's say that's the third star.
Okay, so like, do you think they try and do something like that, or you know, there's also the talk that LeBron is starting to want to play off ball a little bit more and be able to conserve his body so he can play a little bit longer. Even what do you think?
I think that if LeBron were to come, I think that would be part of the dictated terms by LeBron.
Yeah,
for him coming. I think that, like, you know, LeBron has no investment in our young core.
Yeah, of course.
You know, he doesn't care. He wants to probably make life a little bit easier on himself. And again, this is all under the pretense that he's coming, right?
Yeah.
But he gets to live in LA, work with his production company, Spring Hill Productions, working on movies, right? Doing all the other things.
Get his kids out of Cleveland.
Gets out of Cleveland, lives in that palatial estate that he's renovating out in Brentwood. And Paul George makes his life a little bit easier, right? And then there's a third guy. And the thing about getting a third guy is the Lakers probably would not have to blow up the entire young core to accommodate LeBron, right? I wouldn't get attached to any one of them individually, but I do think that if LeBron's coming, he's going to be like, hey, I'm coming, but it's under the terms of like, Paul George is coming too, and you're getting me that third guy that I want, that Kevin Love, that Bosh. Now, who ends up going out in a deal like that, I can't say.
Right.
But I do think that would be like part of the deal in the first place.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I guess then my thing is how much are you willing to give up?
I mean, who are we talking about?
I mean, of at least there's the quote unquote big three young guys for LA. You know, you got the Kuzma, Lonzo, and Ingram. Do you give up both? Because sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure you've said in the past that you would trade either one of those guys, but Zoe is kind of the guy that isn't going anywhere just because he's kind of like that Draymond and a guard.
Right.
I've heard other people say that. I can't remember who exactly, but where he can be a superstar role player that's actually a superstar, if that makes any sense. Just making it a more, an easier time for those stars. So would you give up those two, and then like if draft picks had to be attached, or like what?
I mean, it all depends on context. So for one, I would be willing to trade any of the guys, including Lonzo, if LeBron and Paul George were coming, because you're at like shoot your shot point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's different when you're talking about getting one guy and then you like aren't going all in. You're not pushing all the chips into the middle of the table at that point. Then you can be a little bit more discriminating. But if you got LeBron in hand, you got Paul George in hand, and you can get Kawhi, like, to me, what I would try to do, because there are some financial components of that get tricky too, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'd be willing to give up a couple of those guys if you're willing to take Dang with you.
Yeah.
and a couple picks if necessary. Again, like, this is like shoot your shot type of territory.
Right.
So if they pick 2 of those guys, but they take on the Deng contract, then that means Randall can stay, and you've got, you've got Kawhi, LeBron, Paul George, and Randall with
you might still have Hart too,
right? With a couple of young guys left over too, and then you got ring chasers looking to sign for the mid-level in a year where not a lot of teams got money to give them more than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, 100%.
To me, like, if you get those 2 guys, that's the time to like shoot your shot. And I know Laker fans are invested in the young guys and all of that, but like, look, Golden State was this close, man. If Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, we were talking a year ago, oh, Golden State's going to win the next few championships. What's the point?
Yeah.
I was guilty of that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're this close. They've gone to 4 straight finals. That happened to Lakers. I saw what happened the following year to a team that wasn't as talented as them. They swept them. They whooped them. They've played a lot of games. They're vulnerable. They can be beaten. And if the Lakers are able to go all in like that, man, championships are hard to come by. You got to do it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I think like, so Zoe, the one guy though that you would try and hold on.
Yeah, he'd be the last guy, right? Because he's the guy that needs the ball the least to be able to, needs the fewest shots. If you can, so for example, say it's Ingram, Kuzma, and Deng that go out, and then you've got all this army of wings, of the best wings in the league with LeBron, Kawhi, and Paul George. You got a guy like Josh Hart still in the fold.
Yeah.
You got Lonzo still in the fold. You got money for Julius.
Oh.
That's a squad right there, man.
That is a squad, man.
Yeah. I think Brandon leaving would hurt me. I
know.
But yes.
But if it needs to be Lonzo, that's fine too. Like Lonzo leaving would hurt me. But
yeah.
No,
I totally understand. It's just something like, I don't want to just completely tear the whole thing down. And then, like LeBron, LeBron's what, 33, going to be 34, 15th, 15th year.
Did you know it was the 15th year this year?
Did you know? It's just like, I know he's a robot and he's an alien and everything like that. Like, does it eventually come back and, all those minutes eventually kill him, well, not kill him, obviously, but, just like he's down for the count, I don't know. I guess my thing is, I don't want to be back in this place again. I'm tired of this place.
I totally get you, Clayton. The one thing I would say, regardless of what we think, do you think for a second Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka wouldn't do that?
Oh no, they would. No, if San Antonio calls and like, hey, yeah, you know what, Kawhi isn't going to take that supermax, and I think that's going to be the determining thing right there, especially for him if he doesn't take that $217 million max.
Obviously he's gone after that.
Yeah, but if they call and say, hey, we'll trade you Kawhi for Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, and
next year's defender,
this, that, and the other, then I think Pelinka and Magic are going to be driving them to LAX themselves, and then they might even fly out to San Antonio on a private jet and bring Kawhi and get all the Wingstop for him that he can possibly imagine. If
you can get that squad and keep 2 or 3 of the young guys like Zoe, Hart, and Julius, and then you have those 3 wings and then ring chasers, I would absolutely be fine with that.
Yeah.
I think if we're keeping a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them, then I'll be fine. And we have those other guys. I'm not gonna be like extremely happy about it, but I'll be happy eventually.
Once the parade's going down, then, I'll be definitely super happy.
Yeah. Moving on to the last 2 are guys who were Lakers last year. Let's talk about Julius Randle. Now he's been a topic of discussion pretty much the whole season for Lakers. Now, Pete, I know there's a lot of different contexts again with Julius and like a lot of different situations that could happen. But how confident are you that Julius is still a Laker next season?
75%. I think
I'm with you.
Even if I think LeBron and Paul George are coming, like to me, that's the only version of the future where he's not back. But since I do think they're coming, there's a possibility that he's not. But I think they go out of their way to move Deng to keep Julius. I think he played himself into the Lakers' future.
Now, do you think it's like a long-term contract? Or do you think it's like a 1+1?
For Julius, I
Yeah.
think they try and lock him up as long as they can because
Like a 4-year, 70 mil, 72 mil, something like that.
you've also got the Lakers are in the best position to re-sign Julius that they could be considering the year that he just had. Not only are there a few teams with a lot of money, with much money, you've also got a lot of the coveted guys that are restricted free agents are also like Capella, Gordon, guys that are Jabari Parker to a lesser extent, perhaps guys that are 4s or 5s that, other teams will be competing for those guys, maybe even first ahead of Randall in situations
and still DeAndre and Boogie as well,
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got the draft, right? Like Dallas has the 5th pick. If Mo Bamba is there and they take him, do they then throw $20 million a year at Julius?
Yeah.
To me, that seems less likely. I don't know what they're thinking, but it seems like, hey, we've got our guy for the future. We're not going to give this guy 4 years, $80 million. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I think that like, if they're not going to resign him, it would be like, if they want to resign him, all of the things that needed to happen have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my real quick, the Dallas thing, because it keeps getting brought up, and I've seen plenty of like Dallas bloggers and other Dallas writers just like, I don't know where this is coming from, because they're not hearing it from the team. And maybe that's changed since the last time I like really looked at that. I think that's more of just Lakers fans connecting dots because he's from Texas and I believe his mom is still there. So I think, and obviously they have a ton of cap space. I'm thinking they're probably going to chase after Gordon for at the 4, and then if Mo Bamba is there or
Marvin Bagley, somewhere like that.
Yeah, something like that. I think they're going to go big.
Unless Doncic falls for some reason.
Yeah. And then in that case, I'm trading up to get Doncic. But yeah, I think that 75% is totally fair. I didn't hear like what are you just ridiculous percentages for Paul George and LeBron?
Paul George, I'm a little worried about Houston. That's the one thing. I think they're just so capped, man. I just don't know.
I'm definitely glad Philadelphia's played themselves out now, obviously.
I think Houston is more maneuverable than we give them credit for.
If they follow the pinkest path, then yeah, they should be fine. But I don't know if people are going to do favors for them like that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so. I don't know if it'd be a favor. I don't know. Eric Gordon can play a bit. I think they've got. I wouldn't count them out. Again, I don't necessarily want to dive too deep into Houston's cap situation and all of that. I'm just saying that they concern me a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'd put Paul George at 80%. I'd put LeBron at 54%. Just enough for me to say I think he's coming versus not, but not nearly enough to be like, yeah, he's coming. I said like the sources, people in the entertainment industry, one of the things that was weird about it was how adamant they were. All of them, all 4 of them, none of them were like, I think he's coming. All of them were like, LeBron James is 100% coming to the Lakers.
That's interesting.
It was like, really? And so I'm just forwarding that to you. You interpret that as you may, because Lord knows I have a couple dozen times since I heard those things, right?
Yeah. So, I can imagine he has like spreadsheets of how Lakers can do all this stuff. Like there's like thousands of them. Like, how can they do this? How can they do this?
Right. What did Majinka or Pelinka? I've grown used to calling him Majinka together. Didn't like Pelinka have like 830 plus possible outcomes for the trade deadline? Yeah. Something absolutely ridiculous like that.
That's homework.
I'm sure that they have contingencies for contingencies.
I will definitely say for sure that I am like 1,000% more confident in those two than I was like a year and a half ago.
Likewise.
Yeah. Lastly, this is a guy that sort of falls into the ring chaser category, but Brook Lopez was a guy that I grew to really like it as the season went on. And I think, again, if you get that crazy 3 stars with Julius Hart and Ball, whatever, I think you can get Brook Lopez and he can be like that center. So what do you think about, one, bringing him back, and 2, how if you think he's back next year.
So I don't think he's back next year, but it's not a strong, like I'd say 45% chance of him coming back type thing, right? I have actually had a bit of a change of heart on him in the last week in watching the conference finals and the teams that they'd have to beat. So in this crazy scenario where they are a championship contender next year, who does Brook Lopez defend against on Golden State?
It would probably have to be Draymond or Iguodala, something like that. It'd be Draymond.
Like, who does he defend against Houston, right? Like,
well, to real quick for like Golden State, it would kind of be like Kevon Looney at the beginning,
or you might just start Julius at that point. Actually.
Yeah, and my thing is at the end of games, I think you're probably going to be going with like a lineup of Julius, LeBron, Paul George, whoever they have at the 2, if they have Ingram or if they have Kawhi, whatever, and then Lonzo. So I mean that's my
this year, right? Like, so he wouldn't finish games on a championship team, of course.
Exactly.
I just don't know if it's a guy like Looney that's out there or a guy like Capella. I just feel like those guys have been like being increasingly pushed off the court, and I think you may have a better option amongst bigs that have a little more mobility to be able to defend on the perimeter.
Is there anyone you've had an eye on, like, for like who you think they could have at the center spot next season? Or is it kind of you haven't delved into the free agency?
Not deep enough. Like, the one guy whose talent intrigues me is Nerlens Noel.
Of course,
I think he's a buy low candidate.
My boy.
But I've also heard bad things about locker room issues and things like that, and against that information gap where we don't get all of the info. But like, for me, a guy like Nerlens Noel, you put him around a bunch of shot creators and you want to switch everything and things like that. Like, that's a dude that's a guy that can play just as Tristan Thompson can in these high level finals type series.
Right. A name that's been thrown around a little bit by Laker fans is Dwayne Dedman, but I'm assuming you haven't looked really that deep into him, right?
Not really. And he's another guy that I would probably have some concerns about his perimeter defense. But again, that's I'm not as fluent in him as I could be.
Would you be, could you see the Lakers starting Julius at the 5 in that scenario that you have those 3 guys and Lonzo?
I would love that. I would love to see the Lakers try that and do that. We saw Golden State finally start the Hamptons 5, in a series in these playoffs. I wonder if, maybe there's something to be said for doing that over 82 games and the toll that it would take on your body as a starting 5 type thing. I would love to see that attempted, but that's an option for me. Although I think Luke likes having at least one big bodied guy, and that's kind of the case for a guy like Lopez.
Yeah. And you don't see them starting a Thomas Bryant or a Ivica Zubac, right?
No, I don't think Zubac is going to be back. And I think,
I don't either.
They like Thomas Bryant, but I don't think that he would be a starter.
Right.
I agree. I think TB is more of like a guy that could be 10 to 15 minutes. I think Zoo's gone. He's just kind of like that big man that's kind of been phased out. And while I do love the story of, he had a Lakers jersey when he was a kid and all that, it just, his skill set, like he never just kind of developed as a lot of people had hoped. So
and I'm sure last summer sort of left a sour taste in their mouth too.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't in shape. We got all these stories about 8% body fat and things like that.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
He was slow, and if you're going to be that slow in today's game, you better be mentally really quick. Yeah, and he's not that either. So
and he hasn't even developed any sort of a jumper or anything like that, like consistently as well. So I mean,
he's got some of the most interesting stands
Oh my god,
they're
Darius calls them Zubats. Like
Zubats.
I like almost every single one of them has a Dragon Ball Z avatar. Like it's just
and they always have that picture of what's the anagram of the Kareem Shaq.
Yeah. Oh man,
Will Chamberlain.
There's a few of them. They're always great.
Yeah, they're always out there. I had one last thing on here, but I feel like that's sort of a thing, especially with all the talk they've talked about. We think the young guys could be gone. It might be a minute to hold off on what we want them to improve on, just to see who we still have after the summer, after the initial trade deadline. So I think we're gonna end it off there. Pete, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me, guys.
Go ahead and plug anything you need to.
Man, you guys know me. At Laker Film Room, you'll find me in. Got a couple of cool announcements coming up. Yeah, I'll be. I guess the short version is I'm going to be producing a lot of content in the next year. So
awesome.
Looking forward to
it.
Very much looking forward to that. Clayton, you have anything you want to add?
Just that hopefully now that school is winding down, our site is going to be taking off even more. So
yes. We should hopefully be doing that. I'll get podcasts up and ready on the site. So go ahead and follow Clayton at Lakers 1949. Again, follow Pete at Lakers Film Room. Follow me at Merge Christian, and you can follow the podcast at Under the Bus Pod and the blog at Under the Bus Pod on Twitter. Pete, thanks again for coming on. And we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.